Hi, it's Greg here again to talk about Vim, and in this screencast I want to share a little tip with you for something that I learned only today actually. And to contextualize this, I'm going to show you a problem that I had to solve today. And so I'll show you a commit that I was working on. This commit, I did a lot of manual work to undo some hard wrapping in a bunch of markdown documents. Because with the line breaks where they were, I was seeing some weird formatting issues when it was rendered to HTML. Decided to put all these things on one line, unwrap them basically. So you can see there up the top, this is a changelog that I was editing. And we have a bunch of bullet points, and the objective is to turn all of the bullet points into a single line by joining the lines of each bullet point onto one another. And this goes on for like 700 lines. It was fairly repetitive. So what I'm actually going to do is check out the prior state and show you how I did this. So let's get that changelog open again. So this is what the changelog used to look like. Now, due to my silliness, as I did this, I had actually turned on set no wrap. And as I was joining these things, and I'm actually going to make this a bit narrower so that it becomes more obvious what the problem is. As I was joining these things, you'd see that I was jumping out of kind of to the right of the viewport. So I would kind of lose track of where I was. Like, should I press J again here? Because if I go too far, then I've actually joined the previous bullet point onto this one. So I'm going to put set wrap on again to make this more obvious. If I hadn't had no wrap on, this would have worked just fine because the cursor basically stays in view. So you'll notice as I'm going down there, it's pretty easy for me to see how far I've gone, and the screen's not jumping around in a crazy way. But for whatever reason, I had set no wrap on. I didn't realize at the time that set no wrap was making my job hard. So I thought, okay, let's make a macro, because this is not the kind of thing that I can repeat with the dot operator. And at this point, I'm actually going to go on a tangent, which is to talk about the fact that you need Vim repeat by Tim Pope. And as the README of Vim repeat says, if you've ever used the dot command with a map, it can be really frustrating because it doesn't necessarily repeat the entire map. It repeats the last action within the map. I've had this thing installed for literally years, so I'm almost not even cognizant of how much it's helping me. But it's really great in that it enables me to do an operation and then repeat the whole thing all at once with a single dot. And so an example of a plugin that leverages repeat.vim is Tim Pope's surround.vim. So it allows me to do things like, maybe I want to change these backticks from backticks to single quotes. So in that case, I would do change surround backtick single quote. And if I wanted to repeat that, I could move to the next one and hit dot. The reason why dot worked there is because it treated that entire mapping of the change surround backtick single quote as an atomic operation. Now, in the case of the concrete thing that I'm trying to do here, which is join lines together with Shift J, I have a complex operation here too, because with the screen jumping around like this, what I actually want to do is after each one, go to the 0th column to make sure that I have finished with a particular bullet point and I shouldn't continue pressing J. So I thought, okay, it sounds like a job for a macro. So I record a macro with QQ, which is the default macro slot for me. And the notion was the macro would contain Shift J and then 0, right? So after each one, it would go back to the 0th column, hit Q to stop recording the macro, and I can now repeat this with what's that symbol called? The @ symbol Q. @ symbol Q is actually kind of annoying to type. The trick that I learnt today is that you can play the last macro back by doing @, which is considerably easier. So @. But it's still not quite fluid enough for what I want. Because, like I said, this file is 276 lines long, and sometimes I have to hit @, repeatedly. And what I really want to be able to do is just like mash a key over and over. So let's make a mapping for that. And the mapping I want to make, well, first of all, I figured, what's a key that I don't use often in normal mode? And believe it or not, that key is return. Return by default just moves down a line, but I never use return for that. If I want to move down a line, I move J. I use J. So return is effectively unused real estate that I can repurpose. So let's make a mapping and bind enter to at. I used n no remap. I'll explain what that means. You may know already, but just in case you don't, n means normal mode, and no re means don't recursively map whatever the right-hand side of the mapping is. Basically means do what it says, and do what the help says it should do. So that has set up our mapping. Now, whenever I press enter, I'm going to replay the last macro. So with a single key press, I can join these lines. So I went through the file and did this, and it took no time at all. There are probably even better, more automated ways to do this, but I was too lazy to figure them out. So let's put that in my dot files. I feel good about that. I feel like I can live with that on a permanent basis. I do not have a dot files session open, or maybe I do. So this is going to go in my mappings. It is a normal mode mapping, and I should probably have some kind of good place to put this, but I don't. So there we go. It's in there. It's promoted to permanent status. So now I can join lines here too. Or let me just check if that worked. It did. Do I not have a macro on this one? So that's why enter did nothing in that case, which almost surprises me. Just to confirm that it works, I'm going to record a macro now. And the macro is going to be to echo hello. So that works. So that's the trick I learned today. Hopefully I won't regret doing it, and I hope you find it useful too.